Jews. Okay, so I'm just going to start with an interesting fact, which is that human children are the most vulnerable of all children of all species. So if you take a baby and put it in the wild, it is the least able to take care of itself of any animal in the whole world. So mother needs the nurture and care. I'll get back to that later. Okay, so in this passage, we can see that God says to Yaakov, just as the 70 original Jews are going, not Jews, but people of the Jewish nation are going into Egypt. And God says to them, or to Yaakov, I myself will go down with you to Egypt, and I myself will also bring you back. So we can see that it was clearly quite a coherent family we had, that, that we were slaves. And we can see that also because God talks to Abraham and tells him much earlier, like hundreds of years earlier, that they're going to be slaves. So it's clearly something that God wants to happen. But a lot of people, not really that many people ask, why did we actually need to be slaves? Because everyone knows that we went on to get the Torah and everything, but not many people question the actual fact that it happened. So I think there are three things which were important when the Jews were slaves. First of all, they grew massively in number. So they became huge. There were, according to the Jewish Talmud, there were about 600,000 men when they left, which means also 600,000 women, and then however many children. And this was important because if the Jews were going to be a nation, like previously they were basically just a tribe, and God was trying to make us into a nation. So when we were slaves and we were numbered that many, we were a people, and then when God took us out, we changed, and instead of becoming, if God had taken us out when we were still 70 strong, it would have been very nice, but we would have still just been 70 people. But now that we numbered millions, we became a nation when God took us out. Now secondly, God performed lots of miracles when he took us out, such as the plague and the splitting of the sea, and then eventually he went on to Man and Mount Sinai and all those things. And whilst there are of course impressive miracles and divine and perfect and everything, the fact that God performed them to take us out of Egypt and that he actually freed us from something and protected us from a certain danger created a special connection. So because God actually rescued us from a situation and he took us out of a danger and he protected us from, he split the sea for us, he protected us, he made sure we lived, he sort of made a connection between us, and he said, look, I'm going to be your protector from now on, I'm going to take care of you, I'm going to show you the way, make sure everything's fine. So God sort of established the newly created nation. So because we were so big now, we were a nation, God said, I'm going to be the God of your nation, you can all see this, I saved your lives and I made you what you are. But then also that sort of demands from God demands from us that we sort of now treat him with respect and with fear and with love, and because he gave us the eventual Torah and is clearly our protector, we should adore him as such. And the last thing which I think Sinai did use was that it gave us some fundamental principles. So one of the key things we learned from our slavery in Egypt is treat the alien within yourself as you'd like to be treated yourself. Because we saw, we were slaves in Egypt and we had horrible things done to us, and we saw what it was like when you go into a foreign land and people don't really treat you nicely. So that's a principle which our people learns fairly certainly, and we say it many times a day, I think, in prayers and various other things. And but I think this is more a derivation of Lahavta Recha Kamocha, because it's just saying treat others as you basically want to be treated yourself. So if you look at the three things, so we became a nation, and with that came, God gave us land and everything. So from there we have our Torah, and then there's a connection created between us and God. So God gave us the Torah, and that was our spiritual thing. And then with this final thing, which is treat the alien with this as yourself, you've got Gemilut Chassidut right there, which is the three things of Pekah, which are fundamental principles of the Jewish nation. Now I thought I'd just make a quick comparison between this and sort of the relationship between a child and the mother. So the fetus, grows inside the mother. It goes in very small and it comes out massive, and it's a fetus. But then the second it leaves the mother, it becomes a child, just like the Jews became a nation when they left. And with the act of giving birth, a mother develops a deep and special connection with her child, just like God did with us. And it's the mother's responsibility to feed the child and to protect it and to teach it, and to eventually go off with the Father and find that it eventually finds a home and finds its way in life, just like God protected us and like fed us with manna and nourished us, protected us from the Egyptians and everyone else. And so I think one thing you can learn from this is, so God put us into Galut, and He took us out, and He protected us, and He made us into a nation. And that's when we were 12. But now when we Galut again, we've moved on to a new stage in Jewish history. And you can compare this somewhat to us having grown up. So before we were a child, we needed to be taken care of. God needed to show us the way, so He had, He sent us nebuah and miracles, and like active miracles. But now we're sort of more responsible for ourselves. So I'm not saying that God isn't with us at all, but you don't see food falling from the sky and sea splitting and things nowadays. That doesn't really happen so much. And you can learn from this that perhaps we're now more responsible for ourselves. So we've learned Torah with our and look, we've been given the Torah, we've been given our principles and our ethics, and God's taught us morality, and now that we're adults, it's our responsibility to sort of, it's now down to us. God's not necessarily just going to take us into Eden or give us the state of Israel anymore. And hopefully, to complete the metaphor, one day we'll go on, if we're good and we use our adult lives responsibly, we'll go on to the next stage, which is Olam Haba, which translates to real life as the end of not the Jewish people living independently, and the fusing of our physical world with the spiritual world, and maybe that signifies the third and final, the Mashiach, and the temple, one will be with God forever, and there's that.